Yo, 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 welcome back to the Out the Box Show. I'm John Wallace alongside my co-host, Chris Calderera. That's right, Chris Calderera is back on the Out the Box podcast. Luffy is, who would have thought, on vacation. Who would have guessed that Luffy was living the good life while the boys are back in town working and grinding on the podcaster's life. Chris, it's great to have you back.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me back on to pinch hit for Luffy. You know, I got a bone to pick with that guy. He picked a heck of a week to dip on LSU baseball. With losing the Auburn series, he doesn't have to deal with any of this nonsense. So kudos to him.
Well, I think that's what happened. He saw things were going downhill and he skipped town. He had to get out of here before the LSU faithful burnt the city down. But I'm glad you brought that up, Chris. I know you have a lot to say about that. We're going to get to all of it. We're gonna address some hard-hitting questions today as LSU heads into their series this weekend against Mississippi State and approaching the postseason. We're going to get to all of it, break it all down, give a preview kind of for this coming weekend at the box, and we're going to get rolling. But before we do all that, I want to give a huge shout out to the Boot Crew Media Network. That's where Mr. Chris Calderera posts all of his articles. And if you don't know, you should. They are absolutely fantastic. Chris is a poet when he puts pen to paper, or in this case, his fingers to the keyboard. I guess that's what you would call it. But Boot Crew Media not only has great content from Chris, but all over the Saints. We actually talked. Chris actually went to school with former Raiders tight end and new Saints tight end, Mr. Foster Moreau, that got signed today. We'll get his opinion on that. But the Boot Crew Media Network and bootcrewmedia.com are the place to be. Make sure to follow them, bootcrewmedia.com, and on social media at Boot Crew Media. And just like the Boot Crew Media Network is the best in town as far as media goes, Blaine Loop is the best in town as far as realty goes. Blaine has left Keller Williams Realty to join Louisiana's newest premier brokerage, Forte Realty. Forte Realty is a group of young realtors ready to take the state by storm to assist you with all of your real estate needs. He has many new resources being made available to him at Forte, and he is better equipped to get you the house of your dreams. He still wants to be your friend, your neighbor, and your agent. He wants you to call or text him at 504-858-0031. And he also wants you to know that Forte Realty is an equal opportunity housing partner. Each office is independently owned and operated. Did you know that, Chris?
I've listened to the show once or twice, so I was familiar with that.
Yes. Please hit up Blaine. He has been my personal realtor for real estate transactions, and he wants to be yours. 504-858-0031 for all your housing needs. All right, Chris. I told you we were going to get to the hard-hitting questions on this episode of the podcast. Is LSU baseball doomed for the postseason?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you go online to the popular blog sites out there, it does seem like the sky is falling on the team, specifically with pitching. I mean, I'm sure we'll get to the specifics of what went wrong this last weekend for Auburn, but I will say that it's uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable watching, obviously, them losing the series. But I mean, man, when you got guys coming in that just can't throw strikes, it makes for some bad baseball.
Yeah, and I think that if you really break it down, LSU fans kind of fall into two camps, right? One, I know I was texting with Rory about it, and we were kind of going back and forth in a group text. It's like some people think LSU baseball is doomed because of that one reason. That one reason they think that. You play series all throughout the year, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You throw Skeens on Friday night. That's a lock. And then you move into Saturday. Floyd's a little bit more of a sure hand, but has struggled at times. And then Sunday is kind of just a free-for-all. And the thought is that once you get to the SEC tournament or, a regional is multiple games and a super is at max 3. Once you get to Omaha, you're bound to run into some trouble, kind of like what happened to us in 2017 when we played in the championship of the College World Series. Russell Reynolds ended up starting game 1 of the College World Series championship series. So there are people that fall into that camp, and there are other people that say this team has been number 1 all year. We haven't lost back-to-back games up to this point until this previous weekend. We hadn't lost a series all year in the toughest conference in baseball, and I think it's pretty remarkable to remain number one from the start of the season to now 48 games in, or 47 until they bumped us down to number two. I believe Wake Forest moved into the number one spot. So I guess and I listened to Charles Hannegriff. He made a great point. He said you can live in both realities. He said you can be concerned about the pitching heading into the postseason, but you can also recognize that LSU has had much success throughout the year. And I think Dan Canterbury and Charles Hannegriff have a podcast that they do twice a week on LSU baseball. And Dan Canterbury, former LSU coach, said, all you got to do is rely on Skeens to do what he's done all year. We're going to get to that. He had, one of his best outings of the year on Friday night. And you're going up against the other team's 1s and 2s on Friday and Saturday, right? As you go down through the weekend, everybody's pitching gets a little bit worse. So yep. I think what the point he was trying to make is that your hitting just has to be better than the other team's hitting on Sunday. It's not as important that your pitchers go out and throw 15 strikeouts and 110 pitches like Skeens does. Granted, like you said before, we have to throw strikes on Sundays. We don't have to get 15 strikeouts, but we have to throw strikes. So, all right, Chris, I'm sorry. I just kind of had to.
I agree with everything you said. I mean, I really like the point where you can live in both realities. I think that's a fair assessment of the situation.
All right, so let's break it down. Let's start with the brighter spot of the weekend. Game one, LSU was able to take game one against Auburn on Friday night by a score of 3-0. We actually got out hit in this game. Auburn had 7 hits, LSU had 5, and Trey Morgan was responsible for all 3 runs in this game. Had a 2-run bomb to just kind of set the tone in the first inning. Me and you were talking about it on Saturday. He absolutely pimped that home run. He knew it was gone from the moment it left his bat, and he knocked in Milazzo in the 7th. Other than that, the positive is that Paul Skeens had his highest strikeout count of the year, went 7 1/3, gave up 6 hits, and I think honestly even more impressive than the 15 strikeouts is that he only had 1 walk.
Yeah. 1 walk through and gave up 6 hits, season high in 15 Ks through 7 1/3. I mean, you said it, it was his best outing of the year. And whenever the number one pitcher in the country is having his best outing, it's probably a pretty rare air that he's in with that kind of performance. You mentioned Trey pimping the home run too. I thought it was interesting because Auburn is not a very big park. That Plainsman Park that they play in wasn't very big. So I was kind of under the impression coming into this weekend that the LSU offense was really going to do what Trey Morgan did early. I thought we were going to do that all weekend. I thought we were really going to feast on the small dimensions of the baseball diamond, but that wasn't really the case. And really it wasn't the case in this first game. Like you said, Trey Morgan had all 3 RBIs. LSU won 3-0. The bats didn't really show up, but they didn't have to, fortunately, for Paul Skeens being on the mound. And I got to say, too, Nate Ackenhausen and Thatcher Hurd, I thought they both did a tremendous job cleaning up, closing the game out after Skeens exited, which, obviously nasty Nate, we know what he can do. He's been injured for a while, but we kind of knew he had this in him. But it was really great to see Thatcher Hurd out there starting to look like he's coming back into form.
Yeah, and that's what Jay Johnson, he's kind of tried placing him everywhere, whether it be in the midweek game, placing him in a tough spot. I believe the previous weekend. This is kind of a high pressure situation to go in. You're only up 3 runs on the road.
They had base runners too.
Right. I like the move. We were actually texting about that at the time. And somebody was like, why would you put Hurd in knowing what you know about him? And it's like, you're never going to gain any confidence if you are not put in high pressure situations. It's not the highest pressure. It's not like the bases were loaded and we were hanging on to a 1-run lead. But yeah, I mean, a 3-run lead on the road in the SEC, I don't care who you're playing or where you're playing, that can disappear in a heartbeat. And we saw that, later in the weekend. So I was a big
I agree. I mean, look, John, if my dad never took the training wheels off my bicycle, I'd still be rolling around here with 4 wheels. Okay. At some point you got to take the training wheels off, and with the idea of saying like, hey, he might get scuffed up. He might fall down on this pavement, but you got to know if he's going to be able to be up to the task, because look, you're going to need him. I mean, with the injuries to this pitching staff and the question marks in the bullpen, you are absolutely going to need this guy in the postseason. And I would much rather know that he's got performances like that Auburn game under his belt than knowing, well, he might be good, but we haven't really tested him. So.
Correct. That's what we've been saying all year about Jay Johnson. He trusts his guys enough, even though, sometimes they have rough outings and whatnot. Like, you're right, you're gonna need him as you make it into the postseason, especially in the SEC tournament. And a regional. I hate to like kind of skip over the Super Regional, but it is only 3 games, so it's a little bit more manageable. But in a tournament style baseball, and what the ultimate goal is in Omaha is you have to have arms to just eat up innings. And if you could throw Paul Skeens every game, it wouldn't even be fair, right? Yeah. For LSU to walk into Omaha. So overall, good game by LSU. Yeah. The hitting could have been a little bit better, but they got the job done despite being out hit. Moving on to game 2, LSU dropped game 2 by a score of 8-6. Actually out hit Auburn 12-7. We kind of threw a Johnny Holstaff after Ty Floyd came in, pitched 3 2/3, gave up 3 runs, 4 walks, had 9 strikeouts through 78 pitches, looked relatively good, got in a little bit of trouble, but kind of got out of it. And then things just kind of fell off the rails in the 4th when he gave up those 3 runs, and then our bullpen kind of struggled from there. Auburn was able to put together some big innings in the 4th and 6th. We got to see Gavin Guidry, Javen Coleman, Bryce Collins, Riley Cooper, Sammy Dutton, but our relief staff was not able to get the job done after Floyd's I don't want to say fumble because he had 9 strikeouts, but it just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, well, I mean, and to your point, John, I mean, really, if you look at the first 3 1/3 innings that he threw, well, I think he finished with 3 1/3 innings. So if you just look at the first 3 innings complete that he threw, I mean, he was entering the 4th with 7 strikeouts. 7 strikeouts through 3 innings is very impressive. He was looking fine. He was looking great. Unfortunately, the 4th inning, and Jay Johnson, spoke about this a little bit in his press conference this week. 4th inning became an ump show. Ump show. It's an ump show. They call Ty Floyd for a balk, and then he really never recovered from that. They call him for a balk. They eject the umpires eject somebody from the LSU dugout. They're unclear on who they're ejecting. So Jay Johnson ends up telling Jamie Tutko, who's the head of video and scouting, that he just got ejected from the game, when in actuality it was Josh Jordan, I think, that they were ejecting. And then so Auburn's coach comes out later in that same inning and is saying like, "Whoa, I think you might have ejected the wrong guy." At least that's what I think he's arguing. So there was so much going on in this inning. There were so many distractions from a pitching standpoint, and pitching is very much about rhythm. It's very much about timing and rhythm. Hitting is more so trying to disrupt that rhythm. And when the umpires are disrupting that rhythm for you, it's very easy to get frazzled. Not making excuses for Ty Floyd, and I think that Ty Floyd even told Jay Johnson, "Hey, look, I've got to be better. I can't let things like that. I can't let peripheral obstacles like that, things I can't control, affect how I pitch." But I really do think Ty Floyd is your solid number 2 guy, even in spite of, all the nonsense that occurred in the 4th inning. But like you said, John, I mean, for the bullpen to come in and just not get the job done, it was really disheartening. It wasn't all on the bullpen, though. I mean, you had plenty of opportunities with runners on base. We left the bases loaded. Dylan Cruz came up twice, I believe, with the bases loaded. And before this game, he was batting 1,000 with the bases loaded. Strikes out looking the first time, hits a hard grounder to third in his next time up. That actually is a quab. I know last time I was on here, we spoke about quality at bats. So not as disappointed in that one, but Tommy White, he also came up. He came up with the bases loaded a couple times. The first time he got a run in, and the second time I believe he struck out. So yeah, not our best performance at the plate. I mean, we did end up scoring 6 runs, and all things considered, the go-ahead run was on base in the 9th inning. But I think just as a whole, you got to play better in that second game.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. I mean, you look at a game in a vacuum, right? And that's what I like to do. And then you kind of back up and then you say, okay, you can look at the stats and Ty Floyd was pitching well, and then all of a sudden he falls apart. Well, the ball did definitely get into his head. He has to do a better job of blocking out the noise, hitting the you can move stuff to the trash bin on your computer, but you have to empty the trash bin on your computer after you do that. It still takes up storage. It's in the trash bin, but you have to hit empty on the trash bin. I was inspired to make an analogy after your training wheels that you made earlier. I just came up with that. I'm not the one who came up with it, but I just thought of it. But yeah, if I'm looking at the stats right, we had 13 runners left on base. Yeah. And that kind of has, and that's going to happen. That's literally, you can chalk it up to baseball. Showing up in clutch moments kind of plays into that. But yeah, especially on the road too. But I just feel like whenever you out hit a team, 12-7, you ought to have a little bit more to show for it. Auburn scores 8 runs on 7 hits. It's like if you're going to sacrifice one, you have to be willing to bandage the other, right? Like you cannot have both situations happening. When LSU is giving up hits, you have to limit the runs. You have to limit the free passes. When LSU is maintaining their hits, you have to look out for base running and things like that. And you also have to score more runs than them. It sounds stupid to say that you have to score more runs than the other team, but overall, it's just it's tough sometimes for this bullpen as some of them pitch to contact, others can't find the strike zone. It's concerning, but like we've said, I go back and forth on the pendulum. We've maintained the number 1 spot up until this point, 48 games in. And by the way, I'm pretty sure I looked it up, and I'm definitely probably wrong on this. You might be able to correct me. I don't think a team who has been ranked number 1 going into the College World Series or something like that has won the College World Series in a very long time. So maybe this is a good thing for the LSU baseball team to kind of knock them off of their rocker and say, you know what, maybe we don't have as big of a head as we think. So I'm honestly, I'm not a fan, and I'm not happy that we lost the series this past weekend. That's a loser's mentality. We want to win every game of the season, but in reality, it might force some players to take a deep dive into what they're doing and how they're preparing, and might kind of change their mindset. So
well, yeah, you like you said, I mean, you would rather all this happen now. I mean, if you got to drop games in silly fashion, because I mean, look, you left guys on base. You also made a lot of base running gaffes. I mean, Tommy White not scoring on that ball that Thompson hit off the monster. Okay, he's at second base, and he's just taking an awful read to that. Now, he eventually does come in to score, so that didn't hurt you too much. But Jared Jones gets back-picked at first base. Jared Jones gets back-picked at first base with a runner on second base. Like, Jared Jones, where are you going? Where do you think you are going? Why do you have that big a lead? Those are things that, like, hey, if they got to happen at some point, they got to happen now. Like you were saying, so the 1 seed in this new format with the Super Regional has actually never won the College World Series, but it's been since 1999 that a 1 seed has won the College World Series. That was pre-Super Regional format. So, yeah, I mean, look, I don't believe in all the hocus pocus curse things, but I think, to your point, it's not so much like this mystery of why one seeds don't win. It's like, okay, if you're not making the silly errors that a team is just naturally going to make in the course of the season, at some point you can't escape it. Baseball is baseball. So you're either making all your silly errors now during regular season games that, like, yeah, you want to win, but they're not the most important games compared to the postseason, or you can make them in Omaha and come up empty-handed. So I'd rather them now than later.
Yeah, and hopefully it's a wake up call. And my last thing on that is, like, LSU is a very good baseball hitting team. They're the powerhouse of college baseball. That's a large reason why we have carried the number one spot for this long. Baseball being baseball and the sport that it is, you are going to have games where you do not get 10 to 12 hits. You're going to have games where you have 5 hits. The problem is that when those games where you only have 5 hits and the bats aren't working the way they should will come when our pitching staff and mainly our bullpen is also struggling. So what do you have to do to make up for it whenever your bats are struggling and you have a weak bullpen? You cannot make the base running errors. That's simple things that you can do that can, I guess, lift you past these teams whenever you know you're going to have a bad pitching outing. You don't know that, but it's kind of writes itself, right? Our bullpen is what it is at this point. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to start having guys throwing Skeens numbers and whatever. I know that's kind of drastic, but yeah, you're right. Just cleaning up the little things to offset the stuff that you know you're going to struggle with. Like, there's a difference in struggling and having a ceiling, I guess, as a pitching staff. And I don't want to say a ceiling because these guys are all good and they're great and they're great athletes and we're going to need them to perform in Omaha. But when you know you have a ceiling, there's a difference in he is what he is, and wow, that was a boneheaded base running error. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think that's a great point that you make. I mean, that's when things are not going well, when one phase of your game isn't working, you've got to be polished in your other phases. You've got to be polished in base running. You've got to be polished in hitting when the bullpen just doesn't have it that day. Because sometimes the bullpen will have it and you won't have hitting, you know? Like, that's part of being a team. There's ebb and flows to it. So I think that's a great point.
Here's another analogy for you. I don't think it's a secret. I wasn't an A+ student in school, in college at LSU. I didn't have a 4.0, but I also didn't have a 3.0 or whatever. You know, it doesn't matter. But say for example, you're trying to make a C in a class, and just say you're like maxed out on how smart you are, right? Like, you can study, whatever, but you're not a good test taker, and you're a D average test taker. You know how to raise your grade point average in that class? Do your homework.
Yep.
You do your homework, it's 10%, you get the credit for it, and then that bumps you up to a C. You have to do the little things to offset the major problems that you have. My major problem is
look at you right now. This is pretty good.
Making D's on tests, and then all of a sudden the end of the semester comes around, you have the guy that didn't do his homework, he ends with a D. You have me, who did my homework, took care of business behind the scenes, finished with a C- or whatever. You know, so
it's another great analogy. And folks, John's not dumb. Engineering is just tough. Engineering is a tough course load.
Yeah, well, there was a few other things I could have done differently to do better on testing and whatnot. But either way, you've inspired me with the analogies. You're always good. Right now. You're always good for one, especially on the podcast and in your articles. All right, moving on to game 3. This was the game where our glaring issues are on full display, right? LSU gets run ruled in game 3 in Sunday in Auburn by a score of 12-2. Auburn had 12 runs on 8 hits. LSU had 2 runs on 6 hits. We finished with 3 errors to Auburn's 0, which I forgot to mention Auburn had 2 in the previous game. We had 0, but 3 errors in one baseball game is out of control. But even then, like on a normal day, on a normal baseball game, when we don't get run ruled like this, 3 errors would be the main topic of conversation, right? Not today. As you look through the stats for Sunday's game, I'm going to read you how our pitching fared on Sunday. Christian Little started the game. He pitched 0 innings, which makes no sense if you say that in a vacuum. Griffin Herring came in, pitched 0 innings, threw 14 pitches in 0 innings. Christian Little threw 28 pitches in 0 innings. So we had a total of 42 pitches thrown in 0 innings of baseball. Now, for those that don't know, they record the innings pitched by a pitcher in terms of how many outs they recorded. We recorded no outs and threw 42 pitches. We had 6 walks, gave up 6 runs on 2 hits. Make that make sense to me, Chris.
I can't do it. And also too, you're mentioning how it works with the stats wise. I mean, in the book, in the statistical book, because you didn't record an out, you finish with an ERA of infinity. So it's not great. Not great, John.
So, and we were. I'm not going to keep talking about school, but as far as math goes, that doesn't really help your earned run average, correct?
No, not at all.
Okay. I think it's pretty apparent that Christian Little is not at this point your Sunday guy. I think we've got to try something new. Me and Luffy were kind of throwing out theories the other day on who should be the Sunday starter, but in my opinion, regardless of who starts, it's going to be a whole staff day. I think Jay Johnson needs to focus on. I know this sounds stupid to say, but Skeens maybe needs to try to be more efficient in his strikeouts so that he can get further in the Friday night game. I mean, maybe Skeens ought to be going out there trying to pitch 9 innings, which I know he is. And we need to just eat up as many innings as we can between Friday and Saturday so that way, as soon as somebody gets in trouble on Sunday, you have 8-9 arms that you can go to and literally whole staff your Sunday rotation, because there's not a clear-cut guy. Maybe you have a couple thoughts on who it maybe could be just to start it. But it's going to be a whole staff day. And I think the sooner we accept that, the sooner we can get to winning baseball games on Sundays, which we have done a lot this year. But, as you might recall, we've been in trouble late in Sunday games, and our bats have kind of bailed us out in a couple series on Sundays. So if you have an answer, give it to me on who you think should be the Sunday guy, or just agree with me.
Yeah, no, well, so I'll kind of do both. First off, to just kind of go down that mental thought process that you laid out. And you also mentioned something earlier in the podcast that I actually do agree with. So you said, you were kind of forgetting about the super regional. You were just talking about the regional and Omaha. And for the longest time, I mean, it might be a hot take. Well, it was a hot take when I was in college. And I truly believe this. But I always said a super regional is easier to win than a regional. Now, there's reasons why that's not so true. Your opponent's usually better in a super regional. But if you're a team like this LSU team and you're having issues with depth, specifically pitching depth in your bullpen, a regional is going to be a lot tougher because you're playing a lot more games in a regional. Whereas in a super regional, like you said, okay, you roll Skeens out there on Friday night. He's going to be tough to beat. He's got that one loss in the year in that fluky South Carolina rain delay game. He's going to be tough to beat. So you win that game. Okay, well, now you just got to piece together a second game. You got to split the next 2. This team has shown that they've done that literally every weekend except this past weekend. So I'm pretty confident on that front. If you go in that whole staff approach that you're talking about. Another idea, though, is like to throw out some names. I mean, Gavin Guidry, maybe he's a guy. Now, I know he's a freshman. He hasn't really, pitched significantly. He hasn't pitched a workload indicative of him being a starter or a prospect even for a starting pitching job. But, I mean, maybe he's a guy that you start and you tell him on Sunday, hey, give us a good start at least and go give me 3 innings, okay? And then we'll piece it together from there. That's a heck of a lot better than having 2 guys who come in and don't record an out. Whenever you and I are sitting here and we recorded the same amount of outs as the first 2 guys that LSU threw on Sunday, that's not a good thing, John. That puts your offense in a hole. And I don't care how good your offense is. When you're staring at a 6-1 deficit heading into the second inning, that doesn't bode well for you. Okay, you're going to have guys pressing. You're just not going to be yourself. So maybe Gavin Guidry's that guy. Heck, I mean, I really haven't bailed out on Thatcher Hurd. I mean, he's looking great in this closer role that he's doing, kind of a closer, kind of just back into the bullpen. But I mean, man, if he can somehow get to a level where he can be a guy that gets you at least through 3 innings, that's really all we're looking for on Sunday, I think. Give me 3 innings of 1 run or less baseball and let this offense find its footing, and I think we'll be okay. So for me, I like Gavin Guidry and I like Thatcher Hurd as possibilities for that.
Yeah, it hurts so much more because it's self-inflicted, right? Like the start to this game. I mean, I'll repeat what I said. They scored 6 runs on 2 hits. That generally means that there was some home runs, some 3-4 bag home runs, grand slam, or there was a lot of walks. There was 6 walks in 0 innings of baseball. It's just, and maybe a little bit of that falls on Jay leaving Little in for a little bit too long. But I just think this kind of solidified that Christian Little needs to come out of the bullpen. He's been tried in the closer role kind of towards the beginning of the season. Thatcher Hurd was supposed to be your Sunday guy. I like your idea of just putting Thatcher Hurd right back where you started him, a couple weeks into the season. I don't think Riley Cooper was our Saturday guy or our Sunday guy. Or no, was he the Saturday guy?
He was. He was the first Saturday guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, my ideas were start off with Riley Cooper. He's a trusty hand. He's going to pitch to contact. He's going to give up a couple runs. But we just have to get through the top of the lineup, in my opinion. I mean, Sunday, that first inning on a Sunday, the most important thing you can do as far as the pitching staff is get through the top of that order. Once you do that, then it's going to be kind of spread throughout. Maybe luck will fall your way, and you won't have to face the top of the order in any given inning. Maybe it'll kind of be distributed between a couple innings and whatnot. But I mean, it's going to be a whole staff day, and you have to have a quick leash on whoever it is on Sunday. I mean, Christian Little should have never gotten to the point where he had 4 walks, and I get that it's matchups and whatnot. And, Jay's looking at the bigger picture. And I think Jay will adjust to that, and we'll make a change at some point. Like, you need to have guys ready. You need to have 2 guys warming up in the bullpen in the first inning. As sad as that seems, I mean, it just, why not? Tell Skeens, say, let's be efficient. Let Skeens just throw a fastball for every pitch. I mean, they have trouble hitting it, and just tell him, do not miss the strike zone. Then all of a sudden he's pitching 9 innings. You get game 1 out of the way without wasting anybody. Saturday, Ty Floyd's gonna empty the trash bin on his computer and get to 6 innings, hopefully. And then you just whole staff it from there. I don't see any other way. But I like your idea about throwing Gavin Guidry out there and letting him figure it out.
Yeah, well, and I think too, part of the reason he left Christian Little in, I mean, 28 pitches is not a whole lot of pitches that he threw. I think part of the reason he let him in there and walk so many guys was part of it was just disbelief. Like, I mean, I was sitting there watching the game just like, I cannot believe that this guy is refusing to not only record an out, but throw a strike, So I think it did catch Jay a little off guard, where he was like, there is no way that this is happening right now. And then Griffin Herring came in, and really, I mean, the leash was pretty quick on Griffin Herring. I think Griffin Herring went walk, hit, walk, and then they pulled him. But it's just like, it's shocking. I mean, you've got to have a better start on Sunday, even if, like you said, it's a whole staff approach. Because you think about it, John, I mean, Dugas led off Sunday with a leadoff home run.
Right.
Think about if you just got a guy in there, or you piece something together to where you throw up a couple zeros on Auburn's side through the first 3 innings. Okay, I mean, all the momentum stays in LSU's dugout. A leadoff home run to Gavin Dugas. I think we were all sitting here saying like, oh man, here we go. Like, LSU's offense is coming to play. and then they just never got the chance, and it was because of the pitching. And that can't happen. Changes have got to be made on Sunday. I'm with you. Christian Little cannot keep staying in that role. It just can't happen.
Yeah, and that's not to say that those 3 errors that LSU committed just go away.
Yeah.
That needs to be cleaned up. I think that will be cleaned up. LSU has been leaps and bounds better on errors this year. There have been a few costly ones, some that hurt more than others, but overall, I think the fielding is not our main issue, right? It's the pitching, and I think that's the general consensus. What do you think? This is just a thought. I was just looking at it. I mean, I know Ackenhausen is he's I assume he's pretty much 100% back to full health. Maybe still kind of battling a lingering injury, but is playing through it. I don't know. I wouldn't mind if Ackenhausen started the game on Sunday and we just saw how long he could go. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that either. I guess for Ackenhausen, it's going to depend on how you use him. Like if he's coming in, in a high leverage situation the night before, or if you want to save him for a high leverage situation on Saturday or game 2 of any series, then probably not. But I think Ackenhausen, from what he's shown us, like you said, if he's 100% healthy or close to it, he looks like he's a guy that's more than capable. He kind of reminds me of like Riley Cooper last year. Remember how Riley Cooper just came in? He was just like, I'm just going to get outs. He's not so much that this year, and that's, I would like to see that change a little bit. But Ackenhausen right now this year reminds me of what Riley Cooper was last year. So heck, if you want to start him on Sunday and just say, hey man, go as long as you can and just get outs, throw goose eggs up, get ground balls. Like I think that'll work too.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the 3 errors that LSU had on Sunday have to do with just the mental I guess aspect of going down 6-1 in the first inning.
That changes the whole game. I mean, it really does. I mean, you're pressing more. I agree with you. And I know that you and Luffy have been talking about errors the past few weeks because LSU, while they are better, has kind of been kicking the ball around a little bit the last few weeks. But, I mean, really, John, you look at it, game 1 and 2, clean games, no errors. Then this third game, you have 3 errors. Is that part of what made the wheels fall off the bus? Yes. But like you said, I think part of it is also you're looking at this deficit and you play worse as a team when you're experiencing, just sheer chaos that we experienced in the first inning.
Crazy thing is that this LSU baseball team has and is completely capable of coming back from 6-1
out of it.
But even still, it's like it doesn't have to be that way. Sunday you're supposed to be getting out of town. Sunday you're supposed to 10-run rule the team so you can get home a little bit earlier and kind of chill before the week starts again. But yeah, I think those are all great points, Chris. And I think that about cleans up our series recap of the Auburn series. And you know what else is a great thing to do whenever you need to clean something up? You can call Martine at Workbox. Martine is the man. Martine is always working, whether you need a porta potty, luxury restroom, storage container, you name it. Martine at Workbox wants to help you out. He is the best in the business. If you look around, I mean, Workbox, look around. Like next time you look at a porta potty, see what sticker is on there.
Probably
it's
Workbox.
The Polyol brand Workbox porta potty. Shipping containers, they're all over the place. Everybody uses them whenever they're renovating a house, whenever they are, trying to clean up after a disaster. Hopefully you don't have a disaster, but if you do, make sure to give Martine a call. It doesn't hurt to hit Martine up. You're going to get talked to like your family. You're going to get the best customer service in the world. Make sure to hit up Martine at Workbox. There's great people over there. We actually just re-upped our sponsorship with them. So they've been partners with us for a long time. Make sure to hit them up. And you can call or text Martine at why am I blanking on the number right now? I just did such a great ad read, and now I am blanking on the phone number. make sure to call Martine at the office at wow, I have the worst phone ever. It's an iPhone 7 Plus. I'll have the number for you in a second once it loads. Make sure to hit up Martine. All right, while I'm getting the number pulled up, Chris, tell me about Mississippi State coming in this season and kind of what they've been about. The series is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series, senior weekend at the box. I'm kind of a little hesitant after this past weekend to predict a sweep. I also don't like how this will not be the last game for the seniors. Like the Sunday game will not be the last game. They will play another game for the midweek. So I don't really like senior night being on a Tuesday night or whatever. But what can you tell us about Mississippi State?
Yeah, so I mean, Mississippi State is dead last with Ole Miss in the West, record-wise. They and Ole Miss are tied for dead last, but they are fighting for their postseason life. So this is a team that's got its back against the wall. Obviously, as you know, all teams but the bottom two teams make it to the SEC tournament. And you better believe that Mississippi State's going to come in thinking to themselves, hey, this is where it starts. If we want to make a postseason run, it's going to be right here in Alex Box Stadium. Kind of like Ole Miss said last year when they swept LSU at Alex Box and were able to put that on their resume and be one of the last teams in the NCAA tournament. For Mississippi State, I think it comes down to a couple players on their offense. So I'm looking at Hunter Hines. I'm looking at Jordan. I'm looking at Kellum Clark. That's really the bulk of their offense, okay? Colton Ledbetter is also a guy that I think is pretty good. He's a guy that works counts. So I think if you're looking for the toughest out in the Mississippi State lineup, it's going to be Ledbetter. But the guys I just named, Hines, Jordan, and Clark, they're powerful guys, but at the same time, they strike out a lot. So, John, honestly, I think this is a really good series for us to go into because top to bottom, Mississippi State struggles with strikeouts. I think this is going to be a really good game for our bullpen to pitch and say, like, hey, this is a get-right weekend for us, okay? Whatever happened in Opelika at Auburn, flush it. Here we go. Mississippi State's in town. They strike out a lot. Let's get our confidence back, okay? They've got a bad bullpen, John, and honestly, I think their starters are worse. So our offense should have no issues hitting the ball. I'm also with you. I'm hesitant to claim a sweep here, but this is a very sweepable series for LSU.
Yeah, I mean, I think a confidence builder for mainly our relievers and the guys that have struggled in the field as of late. I want to see tight base running. I want to see pitchers going further than a third, 2/3 of an inning. I want to just see I want to see a Tim Duncan game of baseball and series this weekend. I want to see the fundamentals. I want to see proper leads being taken. No, I mean, I'm just kidding. But I do want to see, like you said, just not the – and I kind of love saying the term boneheaded just makes it sound that much worse. But I don't want to see any boneheaded base running errors. I don't want to see any sloppiness. I want to see this LSU team come out focused, have fun, but seriousness, knowing that we got some things that we got to really take care of, and let's make our life easy heading into the postseason. So that's what I want to see this weekend. I'm a horrible host of a podcast that has sponsorship deals where I can't even remember the phone number for Workbox. But finally, my iPhone 7 Plus loaded. Chris, do you know what iPhone version they're on now? I think it's like the 15.
Yeah, I think it's either like 14 or 15. I'm going to be honest with you, John. I'm probably with you in that I don't keep good track of iPhones. I don't know what's going on.
My just for reference, my phone has a button on it still. That number for Martine at Workbox is 225-343-4886. I actually started to think about it, and as I was pulling it up, it came back to me in my head. But I'm a little out of sorts this week. Luffy normally does the Workbox read, so I botched it, and I apologize.
No, John, I'll tell you what. I think it's a good example though, because Here, you had a little bit of a disaster, and it would have been a whole lot worse if your iPhone wouldn't have worked and given you that phone number. Much like if you're going through a disaster in real life, it would be so much worse if you didn't have a work box. I mean,
Correct.
talk about making the whole situation worse. Better call Martine.
Yep, that was beautiful. And the good thing about it is that he already wrote the check out and gave it to me, so he can't take it back. Now he can choose to not renew. He can choose not to renew if he wants to, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. 225-343-4886. Call Martine at Workbox. Great people. They'll treat you like family and help you out with everything you need. All right. The weather. You know, I'm a sucker for the weather heading into a series. I like to kind of paint the picture of what it's going to be like as LSU heads into their last home series of the weekend. Friday, you got scattered PM thunderstorms, high of 88, low of 72 with a 40% chance of rain. The moon phase is the last quarter moon, so we're not going to have a full moon on senior weekend. Spotty early evening showers and partly cloudy, warm and humid. As we move on into Saturday, more of the same, high of 90, low of 71, 30% chance of rain. That rain kind of gets out of there. And then Sunday, few isolated PM thunderstorms, same high-low temps, and a 20% chance of rain. So if you can dodge the rain this weekend, it might be a little bit better than last weekend. I do know that last weekend was a drench fest in Baton Rouge and New Orleans because I got soaked at Jazz Fest. So I was one of the few deadheads out there getting soaked. But all that to say, leading into senior weekend at Alex Box, I cannot believe the season has flown by this fast, but it always does. I do not believe this will be the last time LSU plays in the box. Obviously, they're going to play on Tuesday, the following Tuesday against McNeese. But even then, I don't feel like I think it's pretty much etched in stone that LSU will be playing at the box at least one more time after the game against McNeese on Tuesday. So,
yeah.
All right. Before we go, I do want to give a shout out to the other guys that make it happen. The House Bar in Tigerland. Make sure to hit them up. I'm actually wearing my House in Tigerland hat right now. My hair was messy. I said, you know what? I don't have time to get my hair did. I'm going to go throw on an Out the Box hat because we're recording an Out the Box podcast on equipment that the Out the Box podcast got from the House in Tigerland for one of their first episodes to record. We are still going strong with the House Bar in Tigerland. It's graduation. Luffy, literally, when he gets back, he's on his vacation until next Thursday. Gets back, graduation from LSU. His little brother is on a Friday, and I guarantee he's going to be heading over to the House Bar in Tigerland to celebrate. Make sure to get on over to the house. Follow him on Twitter at Tigerland House and on Facebook and Instagram at House in Tigerland. Also, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use promo code BOOT. Bet just $5. Get $200 in free bets if your team wins. 21 plus. Restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right.
Beautiful.
I think that about does it. Chris, thank you so much for pinch hitting for Luffy. I think we talked about it. We do need you back next week. Yeah. We need you to bring that knowledge and those that wit that you always bring to LSU baseball. And it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, John, you're too kind. You're far too kind, but I do enjoy doing it. I do enjoy helping out the guys when needed. Y'all actually do put on a really good show. I enjoy listening to it. It's always great to just throw it on a long car ride and get caught up with everything going on. So, if I can just, help you maintain that level of consistency while Luffy's out, I'm doing a good thing.
Thank you, Chris. Shout out to all of our great sponsors. Workbox LLC, Blaine Loop with Forte Realty. That's right, not Keller Williams anymore. DraftKings, House Bar in Tigerland, you name it, and the Boot Crew Media Network. We will see you guys next week.